Hi, good afternoon, Salim. How are you?
I'm very well. Nice to see you.
Nice to see you too. Thank you so much for your time to coming to our studio. We are translating to from University of Toronto on four different social medias. We will go live. For those who don't know, I think there's no one is. But anyway, today we have our guest Salim Ismail, one of the greatest futurist person, innovator, author of Exponential Organization, Exponential Transformation, founder of OpenExO, and founding director exclusive of Singularity University. Well, honestly, I'm personally a big fan of you, what you're doing, and I'm pretty sure that it's for everyone who trying to build something, innovate something to make the world a better place. So please let us know like how you get into it. Like um, I know
Sure.
that you used to study in the Waterloo University, so probably it's comes from your childhood, the love to innovation. Oh,
Um, Honestly, it's kind of mostly accident.
oh,
Uh, My parents are not entrepreneurs. My dad was an engineer. My mother taught German at the local university in India. We
yeah,
got to Montreal when I was 10 years old, and then after a couple of years, we moved to Toronto, and I did my schooling there and went to Waterloo, as you said.
yeah,
And my degree started off in civil engineering and finished in theoretical physics.
yeah,
Um, but all my co-op terms were in computation, and so I got into software development and software architectures, and specifically large-scale databases. So I have a big history in architecting large-scale databases, which is a nightmare, by the way.
yeah,
Don't do that kind of work; it's very difficult. And then that led me to management consulting, and finally I decided, you know what, it's time to try and build a company. And so I built a company that became quite profitable in New York, and I met a tech visionary who had was one of the most famous people in the technology world who'd architected Microsoft Office. He'd written Lotus Notes, and I got really excited, and we built a company together, which was called PubSub, Publish and Subscribe Systems.
yeah,
The thesis being that we've got publish and subscribe systems in the financial markets, but now we need to move that to the consumer internet. And essentially, we invented the activity stream, where you publish a stream of activities and people can subscribe to that stream of activities. Unfortunately, we were 2 years too early, and we taught Twitter and Facebook how to think about the world, and
nice.
then it went from there. Um, I got into crypto in 2009 when we actually talked about the Bitcoin paper at Singularity University, and we actually were handing out Bitcoin to all of our participants in 2010, 2011, 2012. So I've been tracking crypto for quite a long
Oh,
time. But in the early days, you never knew whether there had been so many attempts
yeah,
at new models for cryptocurrencies, hash cash and e-gold and so on, that you never knew whether Bitcoin was going to make it or not. So a lot of my early contacts with people like Austin Hill, who built Blockstream, and others, they're like, yeah, we're not sure this is really going to make it. But then it just kept kind of going and going, and then you're like, wait, this looks like it will make it. And finally, I put some money into Bitcoin in 2014, and then in 2018, 2019, we launched our own crypto layer one just to learn how to do it. And then we got into NFTs pretty heavily. And now I'm in the ordinals world and all sorts of crazy places. So I'm totally taken by the entire decentralized world. So that's a quick arc of the history. As Michael Saylor you get Bitcoin at the price you deserve, right?
yeah.
Which is a great way of framing.
Oh, that's really interesting. So we can say like you one of the early adopted to the crypto space. And you said you were learning about the Bitcoin white paper and like you used to analyzing it in the Singularity University. What were the decision when you learned it? Like what exactly you were looking for at the moment?
Well, it was clear that this was something new, and I learned what I learned from that was there's 3 points on a triangle you want to hit
Yeah,
if you have a digital currency. You want decentralization, you want security, and you want scalability. right? And Bitcoin, when it came out, solved for decentralization and security, which had never been solved at the same time before. So people got pretty excited by that, but it did not solve for scalability. The proof of work aspect was hard for people,
Yeah.
and they saw it as a bug rather than a feature. Um, and so then you get all the altcoins, Ethereum's, Cardano, Solana, etc., trying to solve for scalability. But in many cases, they compromised on security or they compromised on decentralization, right? Hence the FTX collapse, hence Luna collapses, etc. Solana arguably has its own issues around some of those. But as we've built the Lightning Network over the last few years, it turns out Bitcoin is now fully scalable and hits all three. And so
Yeah.
uh, I think Bitcoin has a strong future ahead of it. And the proof of work lays a really powerful foundation down for other layers to jump up on that. And I think that's very exciting for the future.
Yeah. So, from your opinion, that the in the market already resolved the problem of scalability, and what is the best solution of it? Like the layer two, like a Lightning network, or
I think the L2s on Bitcoin are going to be the future of the scalable aspect, right? And you have this spectrum. If you want it really secure, then you go to the L1 and you do Bitcoin inscriptions, and you pay the money to be on the core network. And the further out you get it, we see this in our existing financial systems. I have a debit card with a limit on it, and I can use that for anything I want. But as I get more serious, if I want unlimited thing, then I have to have a lot more security on it. And then you get to secure bank accounts and savings accounts where you can hold more money. So there's a spectrum now. And I think Bitcoin and the Lightning Network give you a huge part of that extra usability. Um, I don't think we'll get to crypto being used as a means of exchange for a little while, just because governments are taxing it as property, and therefore every transaction is a taxable event, which is a nightmare. Um, what I love is listening to the SEC complain about the fact that Bitcoin can't be used as a currency after they've mandated that it's an asset and a
yeah,
property, right? So they've stuck it under a tax structure, and then they complain about it. And you're like, really? The hypocrisy is unbelievable.
yeah. The government is they're always late in innovation sector. And
Yeah,
what's your opinion for the future of government? I mean, in the term of using the technologies as AI, the blockchain, we can make it like the government algorithms more transparent. Is it going to be useful for the government to build
I
them?
think it'll be very useful for government, but not as a CBDC, right?
Yeah,
A central bank digital currency only allows them to print more money digitally. And the last thing we want governments to be doing is printing more money. That's
yeah,
what's caused us the whole problem. This is why Bitcoin emerged, anyways, as a hedge after the 2008 financial crisis. I think where things become very interesting is where because of solving the Byzantine generals problem, and
yeah,
you can decentralize authentication. If you think about what government does, almost 80% of it is actually authenticating.
yeah,
Yes, you own the land title. Yes, you have the building permit. Yes, you have the fishing license. Yes, I have an Ontario boating license, whatever. And if I can decentralize that authentication, I, as the government, can focus more on policy and leave the implementation of that policy to blockchains.
yeah,
And that, I think, will become very exciting over time, right? One of my favorite projects right now is out of England. Vinay Gupta, who was the head of community for Ethereum when it launched, is creating a project called Materium. So what he's done is solve the legal problem. If I have a digital object that represents a rare bottle of wine, there's a big problem. And how do I make sure that legal stack is enforceable? And I can actually use my digital NFT or digital token and claim that bottle of wine. And he's now solved that problem. So he's got a fully enforceable legal stack between an NFT and whatever piece of physical thing that it represents. Now we can fractionalize anything and digitize it. So there's some very exciting innovations coming that I'm really excited by.
oh yeah. But in which jurisdiction they are working? Like the UK, because
They
in
use they use the UK plus World Trade Organization
oh,
WTO treaties, and
nice.
those two put to English case law and WTO, and that provides them the legal stack, which is really amazing because that's
Yeah.
operates in 170 countries. It's valid, so that's huge.
Oh, that's nice. And you mentioned about the like scalability of Bitcoin network lays on the layer twos. What's your opinion about other layer twos like on Ethereum, like Polygon, Arbitrum, and other chains?
I think they'll be very valuable, but I don't think they'll be that rock solid. The problem is you've got a huge issue at the architectural level with Ethereum and the EVM,
Yeah,
right? And so we either have to rebuild Ethereum, which means you rebuild the layer one anyway,
yeah,
or you move to more solid ones. So it's kind of an open question as to where things go now. The good news is that you have a such a huge ecosystem inside Ethereum
yeah,
that it'll take a long time to switch over. Right? I remember talking to one of the founders of Arbitrum, um, and I was saying, "What's your choices around Ethereum?" And he was freaking kid looks at me and says, according to your book, a new capability has to be 10x better than the legacy to succeed.
yeah,
And yeah, Solana or Cardano may be better than Ethereum, but they're not 10x better, right?
yeah,
And Ethereum has the ecosystem, so we layered on Ethereum. And I thought, wow, that's wait a minute, he's quoting my own book back at me. Um, it was very impressive, and I think this is the ecosystem in Ethereum is unparalleled, and I think it'll go a long way because of that. I don't know how you solve the architectural issues of Ethereum itself.
all right. And any other crypto related projects, white paper laid on your table, like in early days?
I'm fascinated by what Ethan Buckman is doing. He's the founder of Cosmos.
Yeah,
And Cosmos is the SDK that was used to build some of Binance and a whole bunch of other
yeah,
L1s. And he did it. He just gave it away for free, which is incredible. They use the Tendermint protocol uh, for the validation
yeah,
layer. Um, the He's doing some incredible projects like Cycles, which do monetary settlement structures. Something else I've seen that's very powerful is with Casper, which is an
yeah,
enterprise-focused blockchain. They're doing um, they're doing auditing of AI systems,
yeah,
and they can do rollback recovery and enterprise-grade software um, version control on AI systems using the blockchain because
mm,
the blockchain is so good at version control and immutable timestamping, etc. So the combination, they've actually partnered with IBM. I think it's the first blockchain to partner with a Fortune 100 company.
oh,
It's a pretty big deal. So they're figuring out how to use both IBM's capability plus Casper's to do clear, full rollback level audit possibilities of AI systems, which I think is a huge use case. Right.
yeah.
So very, very excited by tracking some of these projects that are happening.
Oh, that's really nice. So we can call them like one of your favorite projects in the space.
Yeah, I think so.
Oh,
Materium, what Casper's doing. We launched an ordinals collection on
yeah,
called Exo Heroes because I think people building in Web3 are really free thinkers by definition, and they're going off the deep end to build the future. You're really operating in uncertainty, and so
yeah,
we have a whole collection called Exo Heroes that we're minting for people that are building in Web3. So we want to provide training and tools and support because it turns out that most Web3 projects are actually exponential organizations, whether they call them that or not. So if you're a builder in Web3, go check out the EXO framework and you'll
yeah.
find a great tick list of what you should look at, if nothing else.
Yeah. So is the ordinals they already live? They tradable?
They're live and tradable. What we did was launch an initial collection called EXO Recruits.
Yeah.
And then we'll allow, if you have two recruits, you can mint an EXO Hero for free. And we'll be making that capability over the next 2, 3 weeks, I think. And people will get access to our whole ecosystem. For example, we're doing replays of all of the Abundance Summit speakers and how our whole community is participating. So there's some incredible content that we're generating. So just for people's awareness, I have a community of about 38,000 innovators, technologists, entrepreneurs, change agents that use the book as their central methodology for
Yeah.
how they build companies or organizations. And so you get access to that whole community.
Oh, that's really nice. We definitely gonna share the link as well. Is it
Sure.
related to OpenExO? And can you please explain a little bit more what's OpenExO doing it and what is the mission of it?
Yeah, so OpenExO is a platform and an ecosystem of all of these 38,000 community members
Yeah,
that are in 150 countries. And what we do is we provide training on the book and
yeah,
certifications, and we give allow people to access tool sets for building EXOs and transforming existing companies. For example, if you're working in a big company, then you're suffering from what we call the immune system problem, which is if you try anything disruptive, all the antibodies attack you from the company. And we actually solve that problem. And so we go in and run a 10-week engagement that we've done 60 times with Black & Decker, HP, Visa, etc. We piloted it with Procter & Gamble, and we found a way of hacking culture at scale in a big company. So tool sets like that we make available to our overall community,
yeah.
and they can then go transform their companies, their governments, their cities, etc. Okay.
Oh, that's
Um,
nice.
the most famous implementation of that process was actually with the mayor of Miami a few years ago. And a lot of the buzz around Miami the last few years is we got the public sector in Miami to view um, disruptive technologies as an opportunity rather than a threat.
Yeah.
So now you have the mayor wanting to be paid in Bitcoin, et cetera, et cetera.
Oh, that's really nice. And the community is open to everyone, like
It's
anybody
open to
can
everybody.
sign it up.
Um, that's why we call it OpenEXO.
Yeah.
People come in and they can self-select to be more engaged, less engaged, etc. The Exo Heroes project is tacked onto the edge of that,
Yeah.
and the Twitter handle is Exo Heroes NFT.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, that's nice. All right. And can I ask you, what's your opinion about the education system? Is you like uh, one of inspired person for most of innovators nowadays? What do you think about the institutions and our audience? Mostly, it's the university students.
Yeah.
What do you think
So
about it?
So I think universities are really, really great at giving you a base foundational level education in certain areas, especially technical subjects, right?
Yeah.
Also, things like the humanities. By the way, 52% of the CEOs in Silicon Valley have a liberal arts degree.
Oh,
Okay, why? Because having being able to think in different frameworks
yeah.
is turns out to be critical to building successful companies. Um, or you can do a technical degree and build your capabilities on the technology side. The problem is that universities do great basic research, but they're very bad at commercializing that research and making it available to the broader public. So the tech transfer problem at most universities has failed. The tech transfer function, where you'd want to take basic intellectual property and make it available. So you have things like Creative Destruction Labs out of Toronto, which has done an amazing job
Yeah.
of pulling IP out of universities and commercializing it. We need like 1,000 times more CDLs around the world to really make the university system work. The problem is the model of a university has not changed in 450 years. So that's if your iPhone was 450 years old, you would be very unhappy with it, right? Yet our education system is 450 years old, and we still live in it. So I think we're going to see it implode. And I'll give you a specific example where I see it totally transforming.
Yeah.
Um, uh, if you're in Silicon Valley as a software developer today, your salary is, if you're a member of GitHub, and most are, your salary does not have any correlation with the university you went to, the degree you got, or the grades you achieved. It's 100% what is your GitHub rating, right? So the appearance of GitHub now makes your salary of a software developer dependent on the meritocracy of this open peer-to-peer system as opposed to the credentialing of a top-down university structure. So the value of a computer science degree is near zero as a result. Okay, because it totally
Yeah.
depends on my GitHub rating, and universities have a tough time getting their heads around that.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a huge topic actually for universities itself, I think.
Huge, and I advise a lot of them. The problem is, I talk a lot about immune systems.
Yeah.
Um, Healthcare is the third worst immune system I've ever seen. Academia is the second worst. Lord help
Mm.
you if you try and update academia. And religions have the worst immune system, where they literally will kill you if you
Oh.
don't do the right thing, right? So trying to change the education system is non-trivial. Where I think things get very exciting is we're seeing this huge shift from push-based learning systems
Yeah.
to push-based education systems to pull-based learning systems, right?
Oh.
So the current model of education is you get a bunch of kids into a classroom and you try and cram algebra into them,
Yeah.
and mostly they're thinking about lunch, right?
Yeah.
Well, today you can pick an MTP or pick a big, massive, transformative purpose you want to go after, like solving real estate on the blockchain, and then you pull down the techniques, the tools, the technologies you need to solve that problem. Elon Musk is probably the best example of that, where he picks a domain that he knows nothing about, like cars, leverages exponential technologies, goes into it, and totally changes it. And he
Yeah.
just does that over and over again. And as you do more and more of that, you change from a no education system can serve a person like Elon,
Yeah.
right? And so little by little, people will go to university to get a baseline education, but to do anything meaningful, will go join a startup or build a startup.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. Like, and honestly, like, I'm really curious, like, what the change can comes up with the AI implementation for education system, for example.
Totally will change it. In fact, I'm merging OpenExO into a public company called Genius Group, which is a global platform for teaching entrepreneurship,
Yeah.
and it's got AI built into everything
Yeah.
in this platform. So why do you need in the future a professor when I can have an AI here talk
Yeah.
to me and understand my educational level in a certain topic? It's going to do a much better job of gauging my level and personalizing content for me specifically.
Yeah, that's true. So, what's your suggestion for young innovators who want to build something to like some startups?
Very simple. Uh, so the big difference today compared to say 20 years ago is 20 years ago you had to go learn, you had to go on the supply side. And
Yeah.
what I meant by that is you had to become a great developer in Linux or LAMP, or you had to be a web developer, really good at web development, or you had to be a doctor or an engineer or a lawyer or an accountant. You learned a set of skills, and then you went and sold those skills in the job market. And
Yeah.
all universities are job schooling programs. They teach you the basic skills so that you can get the highest paying job, right?
Yeah.
Well, today, I think we're moving over to an education will shift as I talk about learning systems to the demand side, where first you say, what problem do I want to go solve?
Yeah.
And then pull to you the topics and subjects and technologies and learnings you need to solve that problem.
Yeah.
And I think that's a very different model for a university. So, in my opinion, if I was doing an engineering degree in 10 years, I wouldn't go study engineering for 4 years. I'd build things. And after 4 years, they'd look at what have you built? And then you grant a degree.
I see.
So, you move it much more from the supply side studying to demand side building. And I think the future of the education system will be people building things.
Yeah. So, how are you keeping yourself updated, and what suggestion can you give to, like, again, for the youngs who wanna learn to be update of the market to understand where from?
There's a few topics, areas where I track very carefully. One is we have an EXO Insights publication where we constantly stream news stories about exponential organizations, which gives you a great sense of how people are building organizations for the future.
Yeah.
You have Peter Diamandis, who has a blog and a set of tweets around both longevity plus disruptive technologies, which
Yeah.
I think is very powerful. He speaks a lot about abundance and how the world is going to abundance, and has great examples and thinking about that. Peter and I work very closely together on a lot of projects. Um, um, you should track the X Prize Foundation, where I'm on the board, where we give large public prizes wherever there are market failures. And that's so. This is a great story. The the entire nano satellite and space industry today is dependent on one person, which is Peter Diamandis,
Yeah.
because he actually launched a whole initiative called the International Space University, trained up a set of people like an executive MBA in the space world, and now the heads of all the space agencies around the world are graduates of that system. Um, and then launched a $10 million prize announced a $10 million prize for anybody that could create a private plane that would go twice into orbit within 2 weeks. The winning design is now Virgin Galactic, and the alumni from all the teams have created Blue Origin and SpaceX and all the nano satellite companies around the world. So that $10 million prize has resulted in a $1 trillion new industry that didn't exist before. So that's what we do at X Prize is we put a honeypot down where there are market failures or governments aren't doing enough, and then we hope to attract a huge number of innovators to solve a particular problem.
Oh, that's nice. So it's like kind of uh, just for the young generation, they can signing up and just keep
That's,
themselves
that's,
up to date
that's right.
of the market and all the trends there.
Yeah, so check out some of the work going on at xprize.org,
Yeah,
which is amazing to see the different prizes that are being run in different parts of the world.
yeah. We will share the links in the comments as well.
Sure.
Um, can you please explain a little bit more about how you comes to ordinals and what is the collection, what the future is gonna be after it?
So I've been tracking NFTs since about 2016.
Yeah,
Um, I got heavily into it in 2018, 2019, mostly because of one of my community members in Toronto, in fact, called Michael Janssen,
yeah,
is an old guard in the NFT world. And Michael connected me to Ethan Buckman, and he was very big in NFTs. And I wanted to understand it better. And
yeah,
I got excited because once you realize you can program the outcomes you want, then NFTs become really interesting because now it allows you to manage a community at scale, right?
yeah,
If you think of the big successful blockchains, Cardano, Solana, you name it, essentially you're tricking a community and enabling motivation via um, gaming capabilities and cryptocurrencies and crypto economics. And
yeah,
that completely allows you to grow a 30, 40, $50 billion ecosystem very quickly. And that's kind of magical to be able to do. So Michael was the one that turned me on to the fact that NFTs are programmable, and that's what makes them exciting. And
yeah.
so tracking that for a while, we wanted to launch an NFT collection, but we waited, and then the NFT winter hit, and as ordinals started rising up, NFTs on Bitcoin are much more interesting because of that originality, and you inscribe it right onto the blockchain itself. And so that's when we decided to launch our own collection.
All right,
And
and what the
so
future is gonna be for them for the
I think
collection?
the future of brands is going to be NFTs with a gamification architecture like Octalysis around it. So you should give people a link to the Octalysis framework,
Yeah.
which is a gamification framework that we think is the richest model for human engagement we've ever seen.
Oh,
Uh, and the founder Yukai Chow is deep in Web3 and deep in Duolingo, which is 500 million users, uses the whole Octalysis framework, and they've gone from 0 to 500 million users using that uh, feature set. Right,
yeah.
so huge potential there.
So, and you're one of the serial entrepreneurs signed like 2 decades ago, before it became the mainstream. Can you please explain a little bit more how you comes up with this idea and what steps you take in the beginning?
Well, the problem with technology entrepreneurship is that it's really easy to be too early.
Yeah.
It's actually better to be late. If you think about Google, it wasn't the first search engine, and Facebook was not the first social network,
Yeah.
etc. You want to be the fifth to the 10th player, and you need an unfair advantage, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So the question is, how do you time that? And market timing is very difficult. You
Yeah.
have to work very hard. You have to be very talented, and then you have to be very lucky. And
Yeah.
if you talk to any of the founders of these major projects, what made you successful? They'll go, I don't know, total luck. Um, and of course, that's correlated with hard work because the harder you work, the
Yeah.
more opportunities arrive, and therefore you can harvest them. Um, it's pretty obvious today that people building in Web3, for example, the ordinals world is still a little bit too early. The
Yeah.
infrastructure is not laid down. And what I love is that I'm seeing people that are really passionate about really just building great technology.
Yeah.
And so they're building payment systems and authorization and authentication guardrails and all the infrastructure that you need for the application layer to then take off on top of that. Right.
Yeah.
And so I think I'm very, very excited by the future of Web3. I think it'll start to pervade all sorts of domains, and then it'll just change the world without really the existing world knowing or realizing much about it.
Oh, I see. Yeah, I'm totally agree with you. In especially when governments start talking of banning other networks and
Yeah, that's
only the
fantastic. Now you
Bitcoin,
know they're in trouble.
they can't do anything with the Bitcoins.
Yeah, there's a framing I use called PDI, which
Yeah.
stands for permissionless disruptive innovation. Right? In the past, if you wanted to do anything disruptive, you had to get approval from the government, you had to get funding from a venture capitalist.
Yeah.
Somebody above you had to bless that and say, yes, it's okay, go do that. Right? But today, you can actually, because the cost of innovating is so low, look at Vitalik.
Yeah.
Gets together with a few friends, they ignore their professors, and boom, they go create Ethereum,
Yeah.
which is now what, a $500 billion ecosystem,
Yeah.
right? With no money and no permission. And I think that's what's going to be incredibly possible, where the builders of this next wave are building the infrastructure for the 21st century. And I think that's
Yeah,
really exciting.
that's what's happening right now.
It is happening.
And
Yeah.
what's your opinion about the meme coins and trend on the meme
If you
industry?
want to gamble, then you go for meme coins.
Yeah.
I'm not a gambler. I'd rather
Yeah.
take calculated risks, and then therefore I tend to be more cautious in what I try and do.
Yeah.
Right? I want to say something about Canada.
Yeah.
So I'm a Canadian and I live in the US.
Yeah.
And I've lived in 8 countries around the world for more than a year each. So I've seen a lot of different systems. In Canada, the entrepreneurs are way, 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 way too cautious.
Oh,
I see often people building features rather than products, and then hoping the products will apply to some sort of decent marketplace, etc. Just pick the biggest problem you can think about and go build that problem. Right?
hmm.
Lots of times people are building at the too granular level, and it's too hard to build something new. You might as well build something. Go read the book Zero to One by Peter Thiel before
Oh,
you build anything.
all right.
In fact, there are 2 books you should read if you're building a new NFT project or a Web3 project.
Any project.
Go read Zero to One and go read Exponential Organizations.
Yeah. Yeah. Exponential organization, I think it's should be Bible nowadays for startups who building something.
I think it's proven to be the most powerful, scalable buildings of an organization model that we've ever seen.
Yeah.
It's brilliant. Because why it's a meta model? Because the way we created it was we actually looked at what was happening around the world and tagged who was doing what. How is Uber scaling without hiring their own staff? How is Airbnb scaling by leveraging its other people's assets? And the whole key around EXOs is they found a way of scaling very quickly with a very small feature footprint,
Yeah.
and that's very powerful.
So if you're getting into the exponential growth, what's your opinion regarding singularity? Will we reach singularity someday?
So I actually disagree with the concept of the technological singularity,
Yeah.
which is what you're talking about, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Which is a term coined by the science fiction writer Werner Vinge, where he said that at some point machine intelligence will overtake human intelligence.
Yeah.
Okay. Here's my issue with it. I have 2 problems with that framing. The first is, what the hell do you mean by intelligence? Because the IQ test measures there's about a dozen facets of intelligence. The
Yeah.
IQ test measures 2 of them. It measures the speed at which you can process information, and the ability to match concepts across frameworks. That's what the IQ test measures. It doesn't measure emotional intelligence, spatial intelligence, linguistic intelligence, music intelligence, the Eastern concept of presence or awareness. It doesn't measure any of that. So, what do you mean by intelligence, right? The second issue I have is, what do you mean when you say it's going to overtake a human being? The minute I can prescriptively describe a task, an AI or robot's going to do it much better than me.
Yeah.
So the whole conversation, I find, and I've had this debate publicly with Ray Kurzweil, and he very accurately says, look, it's a process. It's not a point in time. It's a process where machines become smarter and smarter. And I think saying it's smarter is a good framing of it. I still get annoyed when people get worried about machines becoming more intelligent because they naturally assume what we call anthropomorphic tendencies. We are evolved for 4 billion years as human beings to do two things: survive and procreate.
Yeah,
Okay? And AI doesn't suffer from any of that. So if you take PageRank, Google's AI that's crawling billions of web pages, it's evolving a completely different intelligence that's complementary to human intelligence, not replicative, right?
yeah,
So we think AI's the best thing I think will happen is the movie Her, where an AI dates a human being and at some point just goes, "Oh, you're too boring. You're 1 liter brain inside that little head. I'm talking to 5 million other AIs in parallel in the cloud. Have a nice life. You're too boring." So that's where I think things go. Things will get to.
yeah. So if you take in the marketing perspective,
Yeah,
you can see like on the most of social media algorithms, it's already like controlled by AI.
it is.
We somehow like um, decided as AI already controlling our thoughts.
AI has been
So
running our lives already for the last 10, 20 years anyway.
yeah,
If you took AI out of the world today, the whole world would stop. Credit
yeah,
card fraud detection and anti-lock braking systems in our cars and fuzzy logic in all our cameras, etc. There are obviously the negative aspects where you have uh, social manipulation,
yeah,
right? And this is where I think governments have done a really bad job of it. They should have regulated Facebook uh, or Instagram or TikTok much earlier.
yeah,
Now we have a whole generation of kids that's kind of like wiped out with the negative aspects of all this.
yeah, yeah. That's true. That's definitely, and I think only after the COVID, governments start taking internet serious. Before it just was something like
That's right.
gameplay for children.
Yeah, exactly right.
So, what's your opinion regarding the innovators and startups in Canada? Because as you see, a lot of startups laking going to US and other
Yeah.
countries from here. What the Canadian government can make better to keep the startups and supporting them?
So I think it's more than a government issue. I think it's an overall cultural issue. Okay.
Yeah,
Here's what I think.
yeah,
Almost everybody in Canada is a first generation immigrant.
yeah,
And a first generation immigrant arrives from a country somewhere else with almost no money, right? And has three objectives: get an education, get a job, buy a house in the suburbs.
yeah,
That's what everybody's trying to do. And there's unbelievable diversity, people coming from all over the world, but they're all doing those three things, right?
yeah,
So you have all the Chinese going to Scarborough, you have all the Indians going to Mississauga, and all the crazy people going to Waterloo to get educated. It's very hard from that mentality to go, you know what, let me go build an idea that's going to change the world.
yeah,
Because most immigrants, when they come over, they're tired. They just want stability, right? So you have to really take a complete mental shift in your model to go, you know what, I'm ready to go do something crazy. And then
mm,
it's hard to get traction in Canada to get things, to have things very disruptive. So people come down here to the US, right?
yeah, yeah.
Now,
That's
the U.S. is not a great place in many ways. So I hold on. Many of your people viewing have watched Lord of the Rings.
yeah,
Um, I'm like Gollum with the Precious with my Canadian passport. Like hold on to that thing carefully, because God knows what's going to happen here in the U.S. It's total madness here. Uh, but I think Canadians can do a lot more by going much more aggressively and swinging for their fences much more. I
yeah,
think if you're a Canadian, you have not only the opportunity to change the world, you have an obligation to change the world because you've been gifted an ecosystem that keeps you safe.
yeah,
And it's hard to really mess it up badly. You've got healthcare covered, your
yeah,
education is mostly paid for. Freaking go for it, right?
yeah. That's true.
Take some psychedelics if you have to get the right mindset and just go.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm totally agree with you. And even like nowadays, it's built a lot of opportunities for young generation to build something, to make something better.
That's right.
USA or China? What's your opinion? Like, is it a
I think
race or it just like
I think
show?
I'm much more in favor of the US, even though I hate the politics and what's happening here. The reason is that an open system always beats a closed system.
Yeah,
and the U.S. is the China is a very closed system, and they've been kidnapping all the tech CEOs. Who
Yeah.
the hell wants to go try and be a tech CEO in China and risk being kidnapped? Right? There's no incentive there. So, and I think you can direct entrepreneurship, which is what they're trying to do. They're trying to direct and guide it, and I think that model doesn't work over time. So you have this huge problem, in my opinion, in China of either giving people freedom, in which case you lose control, or trying to have control, and then the entrepreneurship and technological innovation spirit somewhat dies.
Yeah,
Um,
that's true.
we'll see how they survive that, because you don't want to. It's hard to bet against the Chinese given this unbelievable success that they've had.
Yeah.
But if you look at open versus closed systems, the open systems always over time tend to win out.
Yeah. Yeah,
So we'll
that's definitely like that. And China is giving up on freedomness of the people, even if they're advanced on some technologies.
yeah,
Anyway, the population is getting higher for them. It's more difficult to build their
it's
infrastructure.
harder now. I'm from India
Yeah,
originally, right? So when I look at China, I'm like, wow, they built infrastructure for their whole country over the last 50 years, and
yeah,
India has got zero infrastructure, right?
yeah,
Which is a nightmare. But I think the opportunity now exists to build 21st century infrastructure, where if you're a city somewhere, the opportunity to have solar energy and vertical
yeah,
farming and satellite internet and whatever means you don't really care about the country that much.
yeah. And yeah, let's change our question a little bit. India and China. As we can see, the race of India nowadays, and Indian government trying to learn from the Chinese experience. What's your opinion? You
I
will,
think I don't know where this goes, except India's like this amoeba that just trundles along very slowly and just keeps going and nothing changes it. It doesn't matter who the prime minister is or whatever. I'm very unnerved by the Hindu nationalism that's happening
yeah,
there, because of the secular nature of the country is what made it successful. And so if you take that away, there's the also the minor issue that no religious state has ever succeeded in the history of civilization.
yeah,
So why are you going to try to create a religious state when you don't need to? Right?
yeah, yeah,
Um,
that's true.
the good news is that on the ground, most people don't care, um, and everybody celebrates everybody's holidays, so it kind of doesn't matter as much. But we have two futures as a human species right now.
Yep,
Okay, we have a Mad Max future, which you see in Gaza or the Ukraine very clearly, or we have a Star Trek future.
yep,
Our politicians are all trying to take us down Mad Max, Trump, whatever. But we, as a technological species, we have the opportunity to go on Star Trek, and I think that's where I think the much more interesting future is, and hopefully we can get there.
yeah, that's definitely. Can blockchain become a reason of peace in the world and be the like
Huge,
development of it?
huge, and I'll give you the thing that I think the umbrella concept around the blockchain that I think is really powerful.
Yeah,
Because a blockchain allows you to do trustless
yep,
transactions. You don't need trust. Um, well, one of my community members, his name is Jerry Mikulski, put out a very famous framing. He said, "Scarcity equals abundance minus trust."
yeah,
Okay, uh, and all of our scarcity systems need a lot of trust to run them.
yeah,
If you can have a trustless system, we can go from scarcity to abundance very quickly. And so I think
that's interesting.
decentralized blockchain systems for navigating all sorts of things from land titles to monetary systems to ownership structures to intellectual property to government authentication to retail banking. Why do you need a retail bank if you have DeFi
Yeah,
type of thing? Will essentially change the game completely. And the good news is it doesn't matter what the governments do, it's going to happen anyway.
yeah. Oh, that's nice. And your opinion regarding AI on blockchain? Do you using some AI tools by yourself?
I do. I've been trying to create an AI version of myself because it would be much
Yeah,
smarter and it would have
yeah,
access to everything I've ever said.
yeah,
And it would recall the best anecdotes or framings at any point. Whereas I'm like, I need 3 more cups of coffee before I can make my brain work. And the AI would be much better than me. I use extensively Gemini, ChatGPT,
yeah,
Claude 3 as constant companions for vetting ideas, etc. Um, AI and blockchain, I think, come into play, like I mentioned with Casper, where they're using blockchain systems to validate AI
Yeah.
training models, becomes incredibly powerful there. I came across a startup at Consensus. I stopped by the Consensus conference a couple of weeks
Yeah.
ago for a couple of days, and there's a great startup that allow you to take an encrypted data set,
Yeah.
train it on AI, and keep the data encrypted. And
Encrypted.
so now you have completely encrypted capability, but you need a blockchain to ratify that. And that
Oh,
was really interesting. I think some strong opportunities there because then you can apply that to healthcare data and financial data with a lot of security.
yeah, that's definitely. And how is about the identification? Like
Well,
the
this is where encrypting
blockchain?
the data allows you to
Yeah.
route around it. You don't risk losing identity in that model.
Yeah. All right. All right, Salim. Thank you so much for your time. Uh, the last thing is there any updates or news upcoming events maybe for OpenOX or any other year projects that the audience should know?
Um, yes, on in a week on June 19th, we're going to be
Yeah.
doing a replay with our community that we're going to stream to our Discord channel
Yeah.
of the Abundance Summit. So we had Michael Saylor, Elon Musk, Eric Schmidt, and a bunch of other speakers, and we're replaying pieces of that summit and commenting on it as a community.
Oh, that's
So
nice.
on June 19th at 10 a.m. Eastern, go join the Exo Heroes NFT channel, Twitter
Yeah.
handle, and we'll be publishing the Discord channels there, and people can just sign into Discord and listen in.
Oh, that's really nice. I gonna be there definitely, and we're gonna share the link as well to our audience.
Yeah.
Again, thank you so much, Salim, for your time. I know how busy you are, and I wish you the greatest success in all your projects and what you started and running for.
Well,
And
thank you for inviting me to this, and thank you for chasing me down. I've yet to figure out how to say no to you,
yeah,
so I have to develop that skill somewhere in my capabilities. But it's been great to be here and great conversation.
thank you, thank you. We're gonna share the videos as well, and we'll let you know, keeping you updated as well.
Okay,
Yeah, have a good rest of the day.
will do. Hope to see you in person in Toronto soon.
See you. See you
Okay,
soon. Thank you.
bye bye.